She pretended to be a billionaire's girlfriend to avoid her ex but ended up becoming his real love. The desperate escape the Grand Metropolitan Hotel sparkled like a jewel against the night sky, its windows glowing with warm light as the city's elite gathered for the annual Children's Hospital charity gala. Emma Rodriguez smoothed down her borrowed black dress and took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was here. Her best friend Chloe had insisted she needed to get out more, to stop hiding in her small apartment and start living again. Just one night of fun, Emma whispered to herself as she stepped through the revolving doors into the opulent lobby. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across marble floors, and the soft murmur of conversation mixed with classical music from the ballroom beyond. She had barely taken 3 steps when her blood turned to ice. Emma Rodriguez. That voice, that horrible familiar voice that had haunted her dreams for months. She turned slowly, praying she was wrong, but there he was. Derek Matthews, her ex-boyfriend, the man who had nearly destroyed her life with his possessive behavior and emotional manipulation. Derek stood near the bar, wearing an expensive tuxedo that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His dark hair was slicked back, and his smile was the same predatory grin that had once fooled her into thinking he was charming. Beside him stood a tall blonde woman in a silver gown. But his attention was entirely focused on Emma. "I can't believe it's you," Derek said, starting to walk toward her. "You look different," Emma's heart pounded as she backed away. Different was right. She had spent months in therapy learning to rebuild her self-esteem after Derek's campaign to isolate her from friends and family, to make her doubt her own thoughts and feelings. She had finally found the strength to leave him, to get a restraining order, to start over. And now, here he was, at what was supposed to be a safe, public event. "Stay away from me, Derek," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You know you're not supposed to contact me? Come on. Don't be like that," he said, his tone shifting to the fake sweetness she remembered too well. "Can't we just talk? I've changed, Emma. I've been going to anger management classes. I miss you." The blonde woman at his side looked confused, glancing between them with raised eyebrows. Emma realized with horror that Derek had brought a date to this event, which meant he wasn't here by coincidence. He had been watching her, following her social media, probably tracking her movements. "I said stay away," Emma repeated, but Derek kept approaching. Other guests were starting to notice the tension, and Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She couldn't cause a scene here, not in front of all these important people. But she also couldn't let Derek corner her again in desperation. She spun around and nearly collided with a solid wall of muscle. Strong hands caught her shoulders, steadying her, and she found herself looking up into the most striking pair of gray eyes she had ever seen. The man was tall, probably 6'3", with dark hair and sharp, aristocratic features. His black tuxedo was perfectly tailored, and he wore it with the kind of confidence that spoke of old money and unlimited power. Emma recognized him immediately from magazine covers and business news reports. Nathan Pierce, CEO of Pierce Industries, one of the youngest billionaires in the country. "Careful there," he said, his voice deep and smooth. His gray eyes searched her face, taking in her obvious distress. "Are you all right?" Emma glanced back at Derek, who had stopped his approach but was still watching them with narrowed eyes. The blonde woman had moved closer to him, clearly trying to reclaim his attention. But Derek's focus remained fixed on Emma. "Actually," Emma said, making a split-second decision that would change everything. "I'm perfect now that you're here, honey," before Nathan could respond. Emma rose up on her tiptoes and pressed her lips to his in a brief, desperate kiss. His lips were warm and firm, and for a moment she forgot about everything else. When she pulled back, his gray eyes were wide with surprise. But he didn't push her away. Traffic was terrible. Nathan's expression shifted subtly. He was clearly intelligent enough to read the situation, and his gaze moved from Emma to Derek, who was now scowling openly. Nathan's arm slipped around Emma's waist, pulling her closer to his side with protective possessiveness. "No need to apologize," Nathan said smoothly. "Derek Matthews, isn't it? I've heard about your recent legal troubles." Derek's face flushed red. "I didn't know you and Emma were acquainted." "We're more than acquainted," Nathan replied, his tone cool and dangerous. "Much more. In fact, I think it's time you return to your date. She looks lonely. The blonde woman was indeed standing alone now, looking increasingly uncomfortable as other guests began to whisper and point. Derek's jaw clenched, but he couldn't argue with Nathan Pierce, not in public. The Pierce family had too much influence, too much power. A word from Nathan could destroy Derek's fledgling real estate business. Of course, Derek said through gritted teeth. Emma, we'll talk later. No, Nathan said firmly. You won't. In fact, I think it would be best if you found somewhere else to be tonight. This venue suddenly feels too crowded. Derek stared at them for a long moment, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. But then he turned and stalked back to his date, grabbing her arm roughly and steering her toward the exit. Emma watched them go, her whole body trembling with relief and residual fear. Thank you, she whispered, suddenly very aware that Nathan's arm was still around her waist. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. I can explain, not here, Nathan said quietly, scanning the room. Other guests were still watching them with obvious curiosity. Emma realized that their little drama had created quite a spectacle. Too many eyes? Come with me. He guided her through the crowd toward a quieter side corridor, his hand never leaving the small of her back. Emma's skin tingled where he touched her, and she found herself studying his profile as they walked. Nathan Pierce was even more handsome in person than in photographs, with sharp cheekbones and a strong jaw that spoke of determination and intelligence. They reached a small alcove near the hotel's business center, away from the main flow of guests. Nathan turned to face her, his gray eyes serious. Emma Rodriguez, he said, and she was surprised he knew her name. You work for Henderson Marketing, don't you? I've seen your campaigns for the Literacy Foundation. You know who I am? Emma asked, amazed. I make it my business to know talented people, Nathan replied. Your work is impressive. Creative, heartfelt, very effective. Emma felt herself blushing. Coming from Nathan Pierce, that was high praise indeed. Thank you. And thank you for what you did back there. Derek is. He's my ex. There's a restraining order, but he keeps finding ways to contact me. I panicked when I saw him. Nathan's expression darkened. He's been harassing you? It's complicated, Emma said, wrapping her arms around herself. We dated for 2 years. I thought I loved him, but he became controlling, possessive. He isolated me from my friends, made me doubt myself. When I finally got the courage to leave, he couldn't accept it. The restraining order was supposed to keep him away, but he keeps pushing the boundaries. That's not complicated, Nathan said firmly. That's criminal harassment. Has he threatened you? Emma nodded reluctantly. Not directly. But he shows up places he knows I'll be. He sends flowers to my office. He calls from different numbers. His message is always the same, that he loves me, that he's changed, that we belong together. Nathan was quiet for a moment, processing this information. When he spoke again, his voice was calm but edged with steel. He won't bother you again tonight. But this isn't over, is it? Men like Derek don't give up easily. No, Emma admitted. He won't, especially not now that he thinks you and I are ... together. Nathan studied her face carefully. What if we were? What? Emma's heart skipped a beat. What if we were together? Nathan repeated. Not really, of course. But publicly, Derek clearly respects power and money more than restraining orders. If he thinks you're under my protection, he might finally back off. Emma stared at him in disbelief. You're suggesting we fake a relationship? I'm suggesting a mutually beneficial arrangement, Nathan corrected. You get protection from your ex-boyfriend. I get ... double quotes. He paused, considering. What do you get? Emma asked. You're Nathan Pierce. You could have any woman you want. A shadow passed across Nathan's face. Could I? My mother has been pressuring me to settle down, to find a suitable wife. Someone from the right family, with the right connections. She's arranged several dates recently with women who see me as a business merger rather than a person. If she thinks I'm seriously involved with someone, she might give me some breathing room. Emma couldn't hide her skepticism. You want to fake date me to avoid your mother's matchmaking? Among other reasons, Nathan said. Look, Emma, I'm not good at relationships. I work too much. I'm too focused on business. But I liked what I saw tonight. Your courage, your spirit. You could have hidden in a bathroom or called security, but instead you took action. You kissed a complete stranger to protect yourself. That takes guts. That was desperation, not courage, Emma protested. Sometimes they're the same thing, Nathan replied. What do you say? A few public appearances, some carefully orchestrated photo opportunities, nothing too intimate. Just enough to convince our respective problems that we're serious about each other. Emma's mind raced. The practical part of her recognized that Nathan was right. Derek would be much less likely to harass her if he thought she was dating one of the most powerful men in the city. But the romantic part of her, the part that still believed in true love despite everything Derek had done to her, rebelled against the idea of a fake relationship. How would it work? She found herself asking. We'd need to be seen together regularly, Nathan explained. Dinners, charity events, maybe a weekend getaway or two. Nothing physical beyond what's necessary for appearances. We'd both maintain our privacy and our independence. And when it ends, we have a mutual, amicable breakup. No hard feelings, no drama. You'll have hopefully shaken off Derek for good, and I'll have bought myself some time with my mother's matchmaking schemes. Emma looked around the elegant alcove, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 15 minutes. This morning, she had been a struggling marketing coordinator, trying to rebuild her life after an abusive relationship. Now she was being propositioned by a billionaire, CEO for a fake romance that sounded like something out of a movie. This is insane, she said finally. Probably, Nathan agreed. But it could work. Are you willing to try? Emma thought about Derek's possessive smile, about the fear that had become her constant companion over the past year. She thought about her tiny apartment and her entry-level salary and her careful, quiet life. And then she thought about the way Nathan's arm had felt around her waist. Protective and strong. One condition, she said. If either of us wants out, we can end it immediately. No questions asked? Nathan nodded. Agreed? Anything else? Emma took a deep breath. We should probably go back to the party. People will talk if we disappear for too long. Let them talk, Nathan said with a slight smile. In fact, that's rather the point. He offered her his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Emma took it. As they walked back toward the ballroom, she couldn't help but wonder what she had just gotten herself into. But for the first time in months, she didn't feel afraid. Derek might be persistent, but he was no match for Nathan Pierce. The ballroom was even more crowded when they returned, and Emma was acutely aware of the curious glances and whispered conversations that followed their entrance. Nathan seemed completely comfortable with the attention, guiding her smoothly through the crowd with the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of being watched and discussed. Would you like to dance? He asked as they approached the dance floor, where couples swayed to a slow jazz standard. Emma's pulse quickened. Dancing meant being close to him, meant pretending an intimacy she didn't feel. But it also meant selling their fake relationship to the watching crowd. I should warn you, she said. I'm not a very good dancer, neither am I, Nathan replied, leading her onto the dance floor. We'll figure it out together. His hand settled on her waist while she placed her palm against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat through his shirt. They began to move together, slowly and carefully, and Emma was surprised by how natural it felt. Nathan was a better dancer than he claimed, guiding her gently around the floor with practiced ease. You're doing fine, he murmured, his breath warm against her ear. Emma looked up at him, struck again by how handsome he was up close. His gray eyes were focused on her face with an intensity that made her stomach flutter. And she had to remind herself that this was all an act. Nathan Pierce was helping her because it served his own purposes. Not because he was actually attracted to her, but when the song ended and he didn't immediately step away, when his thumb brushed gently across her wrist where he held her hand, Emma couldn't quite convince herself that everything she was feeling was one-sided. We should probably mingle, Nathan said finally, though he sounded reluctant. Show ourselves off a bit more. They spent the next hour making the rounds of the party, with Nathan introducing Emma to business associates, and socialites as his girlfriend. Each time he said the word, Emma felt a little thrill, even though she knew it wasn't real. Nathan was charming and attentive, keeping his hand on her back or her elbow, occasionally leaning down to whisper something in her ear that made her laugh. Two outside observers. They looked like a couple genuinely infatuated with each other. And the scary thing was, Emma was beginning to feel like it might not be entirely pretend. The unexpected alliance 3 weeks had passed since the charity gala, and Emma's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. What had started as a desperate lie to escape, Derek had evolved into the most elaborate charade she had ever participated in, and also the most exciting. Nathan had been surprisingly thorough in his commitment to their fake relationship. He had taken her to dinner at the city's most exclusive restaurants, where photographers just happened to capture them looking intimate over candlelit tables. He had escorted her to gallery openings and theater premieres, always playing the part of the devoted boyfriend. Their photos had appeared in society magazines and gossip blogs, with captions speculating about the billionaire's mysterious new love interest. The attention was overwhelming at first, but Emma found herself adapting faster than she expected. Nathan had helped her shop for appropriate clothes, insisting on paying despite her protests. He had introduced her to his stylist and his personal shopper, transforming her from a struggling marketing coordinator into someone who looked like she belonged in his world. But it was the quiet moments between the public appearances that confused Emma the most. The way Nathan listened when she talked about her work, offering genuine insights and encouragement. The way he remembered small details about her life, like her favorite coffee order and her fear of elevators. The way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching, with an expression she couldn't quite read. On a rainy Thursday evening, Emma was working late in her small apartment when her doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone, and her stomach clenched with automatic fear, a leftover response from months of worrying about Derek showing up. Unannounced, she looked through the peephole and was surprised to see Nathan standing in the hallway, still wearing his business suit but with his tie loosened and his hair slightly mussed from the rain. "Nathan," she said, opening the door. "What are you doing here? We don't have any public appearances scheduled until the weekend." "I brought Chinese food," said, holding up bags from her favorite restaurant. "I thought you might be hungry." Emma stared at him in confusion. "How did you know I was working late?" "You mentioned you had a big presentation tomorrow," Nathan said, stepping into her apartment without waiting for an invitation. "I remember you saying you always forget to eat when you're stressed about work." He did remember that. Emma had mentioned it weeks ago during one of their practice dinner conversations, when they were still figuring out how to act like a convincing couple. The fact that he had listened, that he had shown up with food on a night when no one would see them together, made her chest feel warm and tight. "You didn't have to do this," she said, closing the door behind him. "I wanted to," Nathan replied simply. He was looking around her small apartment with obvious curiosity, taking in the secondhand furniture and handmade decorations. "This is nice." "Very you." Emma felt self-conscious about her modest living space, especially compared to Nathan's penthouse apartment that she had visited once for a photo shoot. But he seemed genuinely interested, not judgmental. "It's not much," she said. "But it's home. It feels warm," Nathan said. "Lived in. My place always feels like a hotel." They ate dinner sitting on her small couch, using her mismatched plates and talking about everything except their fake relationship. Nathan asked about her presentation, offering thoughtful suggestions about her marketing strategy. Emma found herself relaxing, laughing at his dry humor and enjoying his company in a way that felt dangerously real. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said, when they had finished eating. "Of course. Why did you really help me that night at the gala? And don't say it was just about avoiding your mother's matchmaking. There had to be easier ways to handle that." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, staring at the rain pattering against her windows. When he spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "Do you know what it's like to have everyone around you want something from you?" he asked. "Every conversation, every relationship, every interaction is about what I can do for someone else. My money, my connections, my influence. I can't remember the last time someone looked at me and just saw Nathan. Emma's heart ached at the loneliness in his voice. That must be exhausting. It is, Nathan admitted. But that night, when you kissed me, you weren't thinking about my bank account or my business empire. You were just desperate and scared and human. And for a moment, I got to be human too. I got to be someone's hero instead of someone's opportunity. Emma stared at him, seeing past the expensive suit and the powerful reputation to the man underneath. Nathan Pierce, for all his wealth and success, was just as lonely as she was. Maybe more so, Nathan, she began. But her phone buzzing interrupted her. She glanced at the screen and felt her blood turn cold. Derek's name appeared with an incoming text message. She thought she had blocked his number, but he must have gotten a new phone. Nathan noticed her expression change immediately. What is it? Emma showed him the phone reluctantly. The message read, "Saw your pictures in the society pages. You look happy. We need to talk. He's been texting you." Nathan's voice was dangerously quiet. "Not for a few weeks," Emma said. "I thought maybe he had finally given up." Nathan took the phone from her hands and read the message again, his jaw clenching. "This ends now, Nathan. Don't," Emma started. But he was already dialing Derek's number. "Derek Matthews," Nathan said when the call connected. His voice was calm, but ice cold. "This is Nathan Pierce. We need to have a conversation." Emma couldn't hear Derek's response. She could see Nathan's expression growing more dangerous by the second. "No," Nathan said firmly. "You listen to me? Emma is under my protection now. If you contact her again, if you go within 100 yards of her, if you so much as think about her, I will destroy you. Do you understand?" There was another pause, then Nathan continued. "I have more lawyers than you have assets, Derek. I can tie you up in lawsuits for the rest of your miserable life. I can make sure you never get another business loan, never rent another apartment, never buy another car. I can make you disappear from civilized society. Is that what you want?" Nathan listened for a moment longer, then hung up without saying goodbye. He handed Emma's phone back to her, his expression softening slightly. "He won't bother you again," Nathan said with quiet certainty. "You didn't have to do that," Emma said, though she felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Yes, I did," Nathan replied. "No one should have to live in fear." Emma looked at him sitting on her second-hand couch in his expensive suit. Having just threatened her ex-boyfriend to protect her, and felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just about their fake relationship anymore. Nathan had shown up at her apartment with dinner when no cameras were around to capture it. He had listened to her fears and taken action to eliminate them. "Nathan," she said softly, "what are we doing?" He met her eyes, and she saw her own confusion reflected in his gray gaze. "I don't know," he admitted. "This was supposed to be simple, mutually beneficial. But it doesn't feel simple anymore," Emma finished. "No," Nathan agreed. "It doesn't." They sat in silence for a moment, the air between them charged with possibility and uncertainty. Finally, Nathan reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "What if we tried?" he asked, for real this time. Emma's heart stuttered. "Nathan, I know it's complicated," he said quickly. "I know we come from different worlds. But these past few weeks, getting to know you, seeing you handle everything with such grace and strength, you're not like anyone I've ever met." "Emma, you don't really know me," Emma protested, even as her pulse raced. "We've been playing roles, have we?" Nathan asked. "Because the woman I've been spending time with, the one who cries at Children's Hospital, fundraisers and stays up all night working on presentations, and puts extra sugar in her coffee when she thinks no one is. Looking, she doesn't feel like a role to me." Emma stared at him, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice. Part of her wanted to say yes immediately, to throw caution to the wind and see where these feelings might lead. But another part of her, the part that had been hurt before, was terrified. "I'm scared," she whispered. "So am I," Nathan admitted. "I've never felt this way about anyone before. It's terrifying." Emma looked down at their joined hands, at the way his thumb was tracing gentle circles on her palm. "What if it doesn't work? What if we're too different?" "Then we'll figure it out as we go," Nathan said. "But Emma, it's rather fail at something real with you than succeed at something fake with anyone else." Emma felt tears prick her eyes at his words. Nathan Pierce, the most powerful man she had ever met. was sitting in her tiny apartment telling her he was willing to risk everything for the chance to be with her. "Okay," she said finally. "Let's try. For real this time." Nathan's smile was brighter than she had ever seen it, transforming his entire face. He leaned forward and cupped her cheek with his free hand, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. "Are you sure?" he asked. Instead of answering, Emma closed the distance between them and kissed him. This time, it wasn't desperate or performative. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. Nathan's arms came around her, pulling her closer, and Emma felt like she was finally coming home. When they broke apart, both breathing heavily, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "No more pretending," he whispered. "No more pretending," Emma agreed. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside Emma's small apartment, two hearts that had been pretending to love each other finally admitted they had stopped pretending weeks ago. What had started as a desperate lie had become the most honest thing in either of their lives. And as Nathan held her close on her secondhand couch, Emma realized that sometimes the best love stories begin with the biggest lies, because they force you to discover what's real.